I'm able to just it's very shifted.
Hi, baby. Right? Like, you listen very well. Very well.
Slides are more important. And you see what it is. Thanks. You're the best.
You guys, if you want, you can start here. There's some in the front right here. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for coming, and thanks for our sponsors. This is David Switzer. He has over 20 years of experience in system and network security. He has a certificate alphabet soup. He's currently working on RF, IoT, and IC SCADA projects for his employer, while on his off time, he's using RF wireless networks, hardware hacking, and other expensive time sinks. Jonathan, this is in your bio?
It's an old one, years old. Just give it a second, guys.
Okay, well, that's what it's are. So anyway, we're here for the RF branching. I'm so sorry about that.
So this just goes to the headphones?
Yeah, this was the headphones.
So I'll try not to scream in the mic if people are doing that and then speak loud enough. Apologies. Like I said, there's some confusion. That's an old bio, but basically it can be summed up pretty quickly. I'm old. I do a lot of nerdy stuff. I've done a bunch of certifications. The one error is it says I've got a CISM, which I don't anymore. I actually let that last. I'm not going to trash talk to CISSP, especially since this is an ISC squared sponsored event. But it just did not make any sense after 25 years of experience to keep that up. I'm more than happy to talk about that. It's great for people starting their career. It's a great way to get past any HR filters if you're starting a career looking for a job. So don't take that as me saying anything bad. I previously worked for one of the sponsors, Reliable West. I currently actually am on the red team, building the red team, actually for Major League Baseball out in Manhattan. So it changed up stuff a little bit there. If you ever want to hold me or tell me how wrong I was about some parts of this talk, I'm on Twitter, feel free, or just talk nerd, always there. One thing I was going to say is I know a lot of times with talks like these that there's stuff hopefully showing you like crap. I want to remove that in the future and take photos because that's pretty sorry. Feel free to take any photos you want, but I actually have a slide at the very end called the cheat sheet slide, which is like all the URLs for everything through this talk almost entirely. Take as many photos as you want. Like that's perfectly fine, but if you want to just listen and get that at the end, it's one of the last slides, so I'll put that up there. But anyway, so purpose of this talk was kind of a combined thing. I took last year off from talking for some family reasons, so I apologize in advance. This talk's going to be all over the place. I'm actually going to turn this into more of a training in the future, a day or two long training. So this is going to cover lots of different wireless related stuff, cover some of the basics for folks who may not know anything, and then hopefully some new stuff for folks who do know a lot. There's no 0 days. Probably a lot of people are going to walk away from this board, and I'm really sorry in advance about that. But anyways, the main goal is to talk about red teaming, what people think about red teaming, talk about RF and respect to red teaming, and then just to try to encourage you to think outside of the box or outside of the scope or whatever you might do. So first off is the one that's probably the most, I don't want to say controversial, but red teaming about 5 years ago almost became more of like a buzzword of anything. Companies that previously said, oh, I do pen testing, now they all said, I do red teaming. And that could be they do extra stuff, maybe instead of just a necessary around, try to fish you or call and do like social engineering. Maybe It's very, very subjective.
It'll come back on, sorry.
No, it's the same old guy up there, so they've already seen it. I've got notes on here because I'm done. So it works out. It really be anything that red teaming is to an extent. Structural, hopefully it works out, is to get people to think differently about radio frequencies. A, it's not just A211B, and B, that maybe it's don't just think of radio frequencies or transmissions for data specifically, but think more on like almost a metadata level about what can it tell you that can potentially help you get to your end goal without necessarily even understanding what the signal itself is. So, like I said, the idea was this would be kind of for everyone from very beginners to do more stuff. So, of course, you notice our trashing all Wi-Fi. We start with Wi-Fi. This is how I view the basic concepts of what you kind of need to understand about Wi-Fi we're dealing with it. SSID, BSSID, and PNL, which is the service set identifier, which we commonly think of as the network name. The basic service set identifier, which essentially is the MAC address on the route that you're talking to on the EP. The extended service set identifier, again, is the network name, but kind of like you see in this picture, is if you have multiple APs that are all broadcasting the same name, that allows for roaming, and that's considered the SSID. And the PNL for network list, that's all the networks that your laptop or phone knows to ask for when you go to a wireless location. And I just have to point out if anyone noticed that this picture is in Russian. I was looking for a good quick graphic, and Wikipedia had one that was license free, and it was in Russian, so that's really the only explanation for that. There's no other reason. So, quick history of basic attacks. The original one was the Evil Twin attack, where literally it'd be as simple as you show up somewhere and know, Bob's Coffee Shop had a Wi-Fi access point called Bob's Coffee Shop, and you literally set an AP up called that. There's nothing too exciting about that. It literally was just to try to get people to think you are the real access point. With roaming and the concepts of roaming built into Wi-Fi networks, the idea here was either enticement and coercion. Enticement was pretty much make sure your signal was stronger than devices would pick you over the real guy. Or coercion is a nice way of saying you can figure out some way to DDoS or just slam the real access point with deauthentication. So hopefully eventually those access points will be clients that actually talk to you instead of them. I'm going to stand down because it feels really weird and uncomfortable. But, so the next big real attack was the Karma attack that we all know about. This is, good Lord, it's scary to think that's 15 years old. It literally was a modified post-APD software that would listen to people sending out their PNLs, their preferred network lists, asking for SSIDs, and then responding specifically to those. So it was more of a dynamic attack. It was, if your home access point was, Dave's super cool Wi-Fi and my laptop screamed out for that, this attack would answer back and maybe my laptop should actually talk to them. That was made pretty easy. Later on, as we all know, HackPi started releasing Wi-Fi pineapples that made it almost like buying a toy and pressing a button and making this work. Very, very, very simple. Along the ways, that kind of stopped working quite as well because people picked up on this. So a modified version of this attack back in 2014 was the Mana attack. And essentially, the main difference here is it was more directed. It would listen for requests for an SSID and then do specific responses back to a specific device instead of broadcasting out that I want this SSID. Some variations on this attack, it is kind of more similar to Karma, where it's a loud attack where it responds back with a broadcast. And it's kind of funny that they went back to something closer to field attack. That was because people started implementing stuff like MAC address anonymization, where it would change and randomize that. So theoretically, while doing this attack, you may see a request for an SSID where the device has already changed its MAC address, and so the response was directly with this network. So the tool that right now is pretty much the easiest to use for most of these attacks now. And I have to admit, I did all these slides and realized I didn't even talk about the tool, so I added this last night. If you're wondering why this is really boring, because it is EAP Hammer. You can find this on GitHub. It automates so much of these attacks, the more modern attacks like WPA. Like you see the latest stuff, the responder integration, radius and credential stealing, PowerShell payloads. It'll do Evil Twin, Karma attacks, the latest version of those APs. So it pretty much will do everything for you. It's a very simple program, so this is definitely really easy Wi-Fi stuff. It's the way to go. So part of my attempt on this talk, and I think I'm failing to an extent, is one thing I wanted to drive home is a lot of times people see a certain type of attack, in this case, something like say karma against Wi-Fi, and think, oh, well, that's, macroeconomization, all that, that's old, that's back and forth. So part of my goal was to show more modern stuff, and the current exploit that we've all probably heard of is the PMK ID attacks. The basic concept behind this, if you're not aware, is the PMK is essentially your master key for connection. And there were ways to get this by sniffing and forcing a full four-way handshake, which is totally doable. It's usually something a little bit more invasive where you're actually attacking a client trying to connect. To force it to do it again, so you can sniff all that, to get the PMK and crack it, so then you can log into the network. But a few years back, someone realized that there's a new extended set of commands and information called the Robust Security Network Information Element, which is predominantly used for advertising information about access points in roaming environments, so larger offices that have a ton of APs and stuff like that. And within this RSN ID is something called a PMK ID. And I hope I'm not the only one that keeps saying this is PMKid, because somehow those sound weird. But the nice thing about this, the PMK ID was very simple to compute and figure out. It's down there at the bottom. It's literally the actual PMK, the actual text PMK name, and the MAC AP and SCA, which is so pretty much aside from the PMK, you know everything. The real beauty and benefit about this is something that's getting advertised out regularly, so you don't need a client involved. You're not doing anything interactive. You knock someone offline where they may notice, they may not, they probably wouldn't, but no client, nothing. So if you are attacking a client that literally is a building in the middle of the desert with no one else around, theoretically you could still pull the PMK to then later crack. It's a beautiful thing. The terrifying thing is it works really well. I'll say one thing I didn't add here to point out is depending on what you were doing and how you were funding, I recently did some attacks similar to this, and then also some NTL-related stuff where I had to crack a bunch of passwords. Amazon and Google Cloud are insanely cheap for what they charge depending on how much you're trying to crack. I did an exercise where I had to go through a bunch of passwords, and I had a little bit of fun. I think I probably spent about $300 on Google Cloud, but I went back and looked at the actual GPUs I added to the VM that I had created were $14,000 each for 4. But instead of $30,000, $40,000, I spent $300, got my passwords cracked, and then logged off and closed that machine and was done. So this stuff gets a lot easier. And again, let's also be honest, a lot of times, especially if you're going after a Wi-Fi, it's easier to figure out the straight brute force attack on every character. But even if you have to do that, it's possible for not too expensive. So back on the PMK ID attacks. The original one of this was kind of dropped over the Hashcat forums, and admin named Adam figured out how to do it, or at least worked with some folks and posted a great link on how to do it. And again, these links at the end, feel free to go to them if you like. One way that was made a lot easier is there's a guy, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, if for some reason you see this, I apologize, Simone Margheritelli, who goes by the name of DualSocket. Does a lot of really interesting stuff. He has a piece of software called BetterCap. That about 2 years ago, he released an updated version, and his goal from BetterCap is to be just the Swiss Army knife for man-in-the-middle attacks, and it's kind of crazy how much stuff he's added. He streamlined the process with PMK IDs and makes it stupidly simple where you can type a few commands, collect any of these IDs that are around you, and then just feed them to your tracker later. So it makes it very easy. Another project he did, and I was actually kind of entertained because I've seen a few people around this conference with these, is he did what he's calling the Tamagotchi, which, if you look at it, you know what a Tamagotchi is. You kind of see where he was going. I should have found someone to do a video with this little things like a Tamagotchi where it makes faces and smiles. It is a Raspberry Pi Zero with a screen that's optional, but where's the fun? You don't get to see it smile or cry at you. And basically, this is a little teeny device that will try to kick clients off and force a four-way handshake to get the PMK ID. We'll collect the PMK ID if it sees it broadcast out, and just sits there and gets information. To an extent, this thing is a toy. It very much is. I mean, let's look at it. It's made to look cute, and that's half the fun of it. And I know a lot of people probably looked at this and thought, well, what's the point of this? It's a toy. But my take on this, especially for red teaming purposes, so to speak, is This is something teeny that fits in your pocket. If you don't know how big a Raspberry Pi is, for example, that's actually my wedding ring next to it. So we're talking a device that's very, very small. So my take on this is, anytime that I was anywhere near anyone I thought I might have to kind of work with, I have this running in my bag or in my pocket. It uses a small battery and just sits there and runs. So I'm walking in dressed like this and not have a bag, and I'm collecting all this information for maybe later use. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't, but it's something simple. You don't look conspicuous. You're not screwing with a weird phone or a laptop with a bunch of antennas and stickers on it. It just runs and no one knows you're there. So that's been the great part about that. So one more set of current exploits to cover. We've all heard of crack, which is essentially key reinstallation attack that allows some replay attacks. I wanted to make sure that was covered, and recently actually, while it is a 2019 CVE, this was actually just released last week at RSA, an attack called Crook, which was actually discovered by people testing apparently the original Amazon Echo Generation 1 for crack. And the quick and dirty about this is basically they found some types of Wi-Fi socks or system on chips that once they disassociate from an access point, they write the actual key in their memory to zeros to try to clear it. But the problem is then they found, based on how the chip was written and programmed, that if there were still some packets in the buffer left to send, it would still send those out, but now they're being sent out with the zero key. So if you found applicable targets, you could literally cause a disassociation tag while sniffing all the Wi-Fi traffic that can collect this, and it would send a K or two worth of data to the final packets with a zero key that you use the key in practice. The reason this is interesting is it kind of strikes me as almost like Heartbleed, where Heartbleed would give you little chunks of memory, but if you kept doing it long enough, you'd start getting interesting stuff. There's no reason you couldn't script this and just constantly cause a disassociation tag, timed in a way that probably the end user wouldn't even notice it occurring, while still sucking in all this information that you later crack. Obviously, if you're sitting in a coffee shop, this is a little boring, not that interesting. But if you have a specific target and there's some information about them and you get near them, you could potentially get some good information, usernames, passwords, credentials, or maybe just some dirt of a document they're trying to transmit or whatnot. So this is kind of interesting to me, but this is something I haven't used too much, I don't want to look into. But again, the reason for putting these current exploits in here is to show that while Wi-Fi attacks are around forever, people much smarter than me keep trying to do this stuff. And one thing to encourage, especially if you're starting with InfoSec, when you read all this stuff about people finding this stuff, you think, oh my goodness, the world almighty, these people are so brilliant. I can never do this. A, it doesn't matter, they post it online, so people who aren't smart can go and use it, people like me. B, you never know who's a nice person to find one of these things. So moving on to Bluetooth, predominantly low energy, because that's kind of where all the fun's at these days. The quick and dirty on Bluetooth LE. You have GAT, which is general attribute, which is kind of protocol. Underneath there, you have what's called services that are usually connected to a UUID. Those UUIDs are usually 16-bit for officially sanctioned services with Bluetooth, or they have huge unnamed ones for unofficial ones like this, random custom or random vendor names. I have an example of Bluetooth block later. They can have their own specific stuff there. Characteristics or information underneath services adds the attribute protocol while this is done with. The basic concept of how they pair is with Bluetooth LE. Any, like a lock or something is a peripheral. You can talk to one central device at a time, whether that's your laptop or your phone, but laptops and phones can talk to multiple peripherals at once. So hardware. If you're going to start playing with Bluetooth, everyone's going to tell you get a Seno UD100. One thing that I've never noticed is a lot of times they just say, get one of these. If you absolutely can, there's actually models of these. Most of the models you'll find are going to be a 100 Go3 or a Go4, which work great, but I found there is only one model, and I might be wrong, but I've only found one model that does Bluetooth low energy, and that's the UD100A. They don't sell anymore. I just literally bought another one online used. It was from 2014 for $60. A little expensive, but they're handy. If you can't find one of these, you can do something that is low energy. Easy enough to find online instructions on how to get a cheap BTLE device, crack it open, disconnect the antenna, and actually add an external antenna. The picture on the left, or the right rather, is I have this Amazon Fire Cube TV thing that locked up a ton. My wife and I watch live PD, so one night we're watching it and it locked up, and I got all pissed off to go reboot it. And I noticed in the corner that in this freeze frame that just happened to freeze there perfectly for me was this Sena UD100 plugged into this cop car, which I have no idea why it's there. If I had to guess, it's probably the Axon body cameras, and you see one of the car up there. I could be wrong, but now just in my head, I'm really bitter, and I figure it's because of Axon and body cameras that I can't buy these anymore, but I'm not sure. Next up for hardware, slightly more expensive. I try to keep the stuff cheap. You can get these for 70 or 80 bucks used. If you have the money, especially if you get your employer to pay for it, buy one new. This is the Ubertooth one. It's made by Great Scott Gadgets, which is a guy named Mike Osman who does a ton of neat hardware. And the nice thing about him is he does a crap ton of videos online explaining RTL-SDR, like concepts behind it. If you have one of his devices and you think, hey, there's this random wacky idea I want to try, he's probably already got a video online on YouTube showing you exactly how to do it. So he tries to really get back. So this is great for sniffing BTLE or looking at current connections and stuff like that. So if you can get one, I'd recommend it and recommend finding a case for it because I've broken both one before. Sorry, Joe. If you're doing this on your own and you want something a little bit less expensive, this is actually the Adafruit Bluetooth LE Friend. I bought this years ago. Right now I looked online. It's I think about 26 bucks, probably $5 shipping or something like this. A long time ago, they had some basic software that came with it that was kind of crap. People have actually worked with this quite a bit, and there's everything from snippers on GitHub. There's SCAPI support for this. So if you want to get into BTLE on the cheap, this is probably really the way to go. Again, it's Adafruit. I think there's a link at the end for it for us, BTLE explanations on Adafruit, 26 bucks. Pretty good to go. If you're starting Bluetooth and you're somewhere and you want to start discovering stuff, a great tool is Blue Hydra, totally just for recon. This is actually released a few years ago by the Pony Express guys. You can do this with just any Bluetooth adapter, including whatever's in your laptop right now. If you have a Sena SD100 or actually UD100, I have a typo, that's fantastic because you can put a huge antenna on there. You can add an optional Ubertooth to assist in finding active connections and get more info. If you don't know what you're looking for, or at a location, like if you're targeting an office, this is a great way to see what's there, get an idea of the hardware there, and see if there's anything interesting you should maybe attack. Obviously, there's some blackouts that shows you the full address, and obviously some of the stuff edited because this is literally like the Shield TV at my house. So nothing traditional. Another tool for getting into this is BT Scanner. It comes with Kali. It's nice and simple. It doesn't quite do as thorough a job as Blue Hydra. Wow, my brain. But it's nice and simple. It's kind of low. It doesn't require a lot of CPU. It uses your basic Bluetooth adapters. Nice thing is if you've seen a device up there that you want more info about, you just hit enter and actually get more info about the features that that device has. This is looking at a cheap Bluetooth headset that I got, so obviously you can see audio video headset. The interesting thing about that is you've got rendering and audio, and a lot of times you can go through and find out that this has got a microphone on that, which is very useful potentially depending on what you're trying to do or listen to. Let's see, another tool that is a lot of fun, some people know about, some people don't. It was released at Blackout I think 2 years ago. It's called BTLE Jack. This is kind of entertaining, mostly because it is a cool toy and I always need to buy new USB things to plug in because I've got sickness. This is the BBC Microbit. The older folks in the room may recall a device called the BBC Micro. Back in the early 80s, BBC and yes, the British Broadcasting Corporation had a push of a kind of literacy and education program where they wanted to release their own computer really called the BBC Micro. And they did that. There was a company called Acorn back in the day that built them for them. They were expensive. They did their best with the funding they had to actually provide these to schools at lower cost. The BBC Micro actually became a very popular home computer in the UK. This is kind of fast forward to now. This is the BBC's attempt at doing something similar, where they actually create these BBC Micro bits that they provide. I think the goal was 1 million of them to UK schools totally for free. As you can probably guess looking at it, this is not a full-fledged computer. This is something probably to compete, so to speak, with Arduino. As you see, it's got a little LED kind of display on it, little buttons, so you could program something, even like a little game. But where this is interesting is it's got a full-fledged BTLE interface into it. And this guy, Damien, figured out how to program your firmware to it to do something more exciting, which is predominantly to send Bluetooth that we're about to see. the thing that's fun about this is brand new. These are 18 bucks a pop off of Amazon. His code can take up to 3 to split up the channels snipping back and forth between them, so it makes it a little bit faster. I bought 2 on eBay used for 20 bucks shipped. So again, this is a cheap toy to play with. So if you can, definitely always get your employer to pay for it. But if you're paying for it yourself, this is definitely a cheap way to go. So this is just a quick example of it. On the left, is it looking for any currently activated connections? On the right, is it actually trying to snip that connection? As you see, it figured out how to talk to it, started pulling link data out of it. And the goal would be then to actually try to take over that connection, which was successful in this case. Once you take over a connection, what you do with that is discover services. And those services, like we saw on the BT scanner list, it has the ability to send and receive audio and stuff like that. You can read and write UUIDs. And then you can also do like straight link data, which is the link layer data, which is essentially raw packets back and forth to it. A little above my head, but I'm sure there's a lot smarter people out there who can do a lot of fun stuff with that. The nice thing about this software is it's super easy to use. Obviously, it's Linux-based. From the first version you released to the last version, he even has it so it automates dumping the right firmware onto the device. So you get the software, you plug these things in your computer, you type utility-i. It'll install the software on the BBC microbits and then reboot them, and you're ready to start doing this. The GitHub has all the information on how to use this and how to get a lot more in depth. There's a lot more info out there on this. As I mentioned, I'm eventually going to turn this talk into a training that would actually get deeper into this, but there's easy to find information online if you decide to play with this that we do through training style on this. Another piece of software is BetterCap, which we mentioned earlier. Like I said, these guys, EvilSocket wanted to make this the Swiss Army knife, that he calls it, for all-man middling, and it almost is. Like, general network man in the middling, if you're directly connected to a network and you want to send for HTTP traffic. I was telling Joe earlier, I used an early version of BetterCat at one of my favorite restaurants, got on their guest Wi-Fi, figured out that the in-house entertainment was on the same network, and started snipping man-middling it, where I actually started getting XML data that was explaining what the system in the restaurant was talking to, I assume, some sort of license server, of what songs it wanted to play, and then I was finding lists of the songs before they played through this XML. It was just odd, and that's yet another thing BetterCap does. As you see here, Bluetooth low energy, I apologize, not enough coffee, works fine, it sniffs it. Once you start seeing these devices, you can then enumerate those devices. Once that happens, similar to BTLE Jack, you can find out about services on these devices. You can rewrite UUIDs on them. Lots of stuff you can do. So, on the topic of rewriting UUIDs and services, I will deny saying that I've ever used this software to find stuff like people's Fitbits or something like that and renaming them clever but not obscene things. That's easy enough to do. Most of these devices, it's really simple to do if you want to do it as a joke with your friends. It doesn't hurt those devices if you're just renaming the device. They just will be a little bit confused probably. But at the end of the day, if all you can do is rename the device, that's cute, but what does that really get you? So another thing about this talk was to not make it totally about RF and to look at other sides of red teaming, and that includes maybe like how this can translate into more of a physical encounter where maybe you're trying to break in somewhere. So this was a quick example I saw. This guy, David Sobus, does a lot of stuff with IoT. So you can write to these services, so is that very interesting? He quickly grabbed this lock, and it's literally a padlock for Bluetooth. He snipped the traffic after setting the password to 123456, saw it go through in clear text, and saw where it was going. He actually grabbed the application and dumped it and found, very bluntly, it says exactly the addresses of where everything is. So at that point, all he did was figure out how to rewrite and reset the password, and he could easily unlock this within a few seconds. So I mean, obviously, this is a kind of cheap padlock. Would you run into this in, say, a business environment if you're actually attacking a business? Probably not, but if you go back and look at a lot of stuff, especially IoT locks over the past few years, this type of hack really is not uncommon. So it's surprisingly easy when you actually look underneath the hood and fix that. So current exploits for Bluetooth. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I've been calling it Spoon Tooth. I feel like there's some kind of Norwegian spin to that there. I have no idea. These were recently released maybe a month ago, I'm going to say, where it was 12 different CDs impacting pretty much most major BLE SOCs, which is system on chip. So one of these CDs most likely would impact pretty much anything you have that's doing BLE. Unfortunately, most of these are crashes, so there's questionable how much that will necessarily help you. Some of the actual software that they provide for POCs actually uses what's called the NRF 5284 dongle. That is $10 on Mouser right now, and I believe they give you everything to actually write the firmware to it. You don't need a special program or anything. This is firmware you can plug the USB dongle into your machine, run Linux, and then do these POCs. So the bulk of the CVEs and getting typo is, like I said, it would cause either a lock state on the device or cause them to reboot. A lot of the examples they gave were the Fitbit, like I mentioned, or various other locks. It's debatable how important these may be in the actual engagement, depending on what you're trying to do. My thought process on it is depending on what you're trying to do in an office, I always thought that crashing a lock to the point where it's locking people in or out of the building could potentially cause an effect that you would like to have. And that depends on trying to break into the building, do anything inside. But again, you got to be kind of creative. Because again, these are just locks or dead states where you're essentially temporarily killing the device until it's got a password reset. My thought on this was back to these are more consumer grade stuff than actual commercial is increasingly companies are starting to have people do tests on their executive suite, their C-suite of folks. And a lot of times, let's be honest, those are the folks that, depending on especially if they are in the technology industry or not, have the money to spend on things like a $300 lock, their door, their phone unlocks. So potentially, maybe that's something that the company would want to look into, and this is where some of this stuff would be a little bit more useful. So the last one is kind of the more interesting one. This one is a specific SOC that's used decently frequently, not a ton. But it receives a out-of-order link letter encryption request while it's trying to do pairing. For some reason, it sets a 0 key. And this is the long-term key, which in Bluetooth land is the key that's going to continue to use to encrypt the conversation back and forth with the device. Similar to the crook attack, that means then you have a 0 key. So you could, if you can get a device into this state, then just suck in all the traffic, you can easily crack into this stuff. What that would get you, again, it depends on the device. You could theoretically then connect to the device and look at services that it has. Back to the lock example, who knows if there's something where you could unlock something or just get more information. But that's the more interesting one with that one, but that's a common one that just came out over a recent one. So again, back to part of my talk's attempt was also to connect this to physical access, not just being out in the parking lot. So in this one, the question was, what does physical access get us? For both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, depending on where you're at or what is available, steal a piece of hardware, take it home and take it apart. Most of this hardware literally will have the basic configuration on a small flash chip like the one you see there. The problem you're going to run into is depending on if you need to return this thing. A lot of times these chips require power when you're actually pulling the data off of them, which then can sometimes power up the actual CPU of the device. It's very common on a lot of Bluetooth stuff and Wi-Fi because they're all wired together very simply, and it doesn't require a lot of power. So a little bit of 3.3 volt, you're getting the chip, you'll probably bring that up. The problem is a lot of these use SPI to talk between the CPU and the actual flash chip. So then the CPU will start talking and kind of screw up that connection. Easiest way would be to use something like Chip Quick to actually just remove that chip entirely, so then you're really connecting to that chip and you're not doing anything else. The other option for this is if you can find some way to put the CPU into a reset state. Years ago, they would call this, sometimes for trying to do hardware hacking to get around a boot state, they would call that knitting needle attack, where in some cases you could find a couple of pins that you could put together on the CPU, like using really like a knitting needle to cause it to reset. That's possible in some cases, but again, the easiest by far would be just to actually take the chip off. Another option, depending on what you're grabbing, is there's possibly other pins that you can talk to, like right to the right, you see that's actually a serial port with a cable console access. So you can have access to that way, but again, literally, if you can, let's go steal something. One of my big examples I actually wanted to put on here but I didn't have time was I always thought it would be great to steal some headphones and then actually pull the Bluetooth cert off of there that's paired to the laptop. One, to then hopefully talk to the laptop that's been paired to directly. But the other thing quickly I thought would be fun is if you could steal headphones and to do lazy mode and not break in and get all this crap out, just pair it to your laptop if you're close enough. Like if you're like literally a wall away from where you're targeting, steal the laptop, pair it to yours, put the headphones back. Because a lot of headphones, Bluetooth headphones, have a mic on. So depending on what you're going for, you then have a bug inside this office to listen to whatever's going on. And how many times have we walked into, say, a conference room in the office and there's a random pair of headphones and it's like, I'm sold on their headphones. You close the door, think everything's great, you talk about the confidential information about the clients or your internal business customers. So that's another one. And I need to hurry up with your time. Okay, so mouse jacking derivatives. I'll try to speed this up a little bit. The Steele research came out with mouse jacking back in 2016. Basically, the quick and dirty is they figured out that Logitech's adapters, unified adapters. Ooh. Okay, so Logitech adapters, they did not do too well with hiding the information they had. It was easy to grab information on it, essentially like a Mac address, talk back to it, and have it think you were the mouse or whatnot. And the best part about this is, even if you don't have a mouse connected to that, that's a HID, human interface device. So you connect to that and you start seeing keystrokes its way, and it's like, cool, I'm good. The Crazy Radio P8 is a USB stick that I think is about $35 on Amazon. It was made specifically for controlling drones, but there's firmware you can add to it, so then you got an external antenna and a part of the distance indicated Logitech adapters. Back to BetterCap. BetterCap actually supports mouse jack very well. This is a quick example, and this was actually at my house. Again, this is a mouse plugged into my laptop. Did recon, found it, connected to it, sniffed it, saw it. Mouse checks us, or BTLE, BetterCap, get my terms right eventually, is great because it lets you then sniff all the traffic. I honestly forgot I even had that mouse connected, so I was looking at this like waiting to see my neighbor typing stuff. I didn't see anything, and then realized it was my mouse. The nice thing about it is BetterCap actually supports Ducky script, recently hacked by the product. So you can script together something that you'd like to have it do. And of course, the logical thing is you force it to open up YouTube and place a video really about it. It's super obnoxious, and it all works. Back to mouse jack, the main goal there is instead of having to do this, especially if you know what you're targeting, like a Windows device, you can very easily have it bring up a terminal and run something that would cause a reverse shell out of that device to your command and control network. You know, with something you post on called Cobalt Strike, anything like that. Back to mouse jack was 2016, so like that's dead, right? Back to don't think the attack is dead because they always seem to go back to life. A lot of people are not patching this stuff. And then recently there was a guy in Marcus Games who released some stuff that's very similar to Logitech, which actually allows syncing the AES keys, so even if you have an updated Logitech stuff, it would snip on pairing so you could then decrypt it. It would do injection keys with keys that you've already dumped, and then also in some other cases, injecting keys with stuff that you've dumped, like you have physical access to the USB stick itself. On the left is the NRF adapter that I mentioned earlier for the Bluetooth stuff. That actually can be used for Logitech as well. On the right is a device from a company called April Brother that's the same chipset. The nice thing about that is external antenna for distance. Device on the left, $10. Device on the right, $12. Firmware all available online via their GitHub. If you're interested in these things, look at the GitHub link at the end. They'll have info on how to get to that. In this case, physical access. What does that get us? They actually created a JavaScript program that you could host somewhere. So if you have physical access, go to the computer, get into it, go to the JavaScript, and if it's the right version, then you have it right for Chrome. Mind you, this might be a lot out of date in some places. You can actually dump the key there and save it and go on your way, and then walk away and close the browser tab, and then you have the key to then go back into the actual other attack. More quickly, other RF. Like I said, I didn't want to focus on 802.11, so the idea was to cover some other stuff that might be useful depending on your engagement. The TYT MP380 is that lovely phone on the left. The lovely graphic on the right is the icon for a guy named Travis Goodspeed who loves to talk about being a good neighbor, and it's very bizarre. He's an interesting, weird, interesting guy. He also has released a book series called POC or GTFO, and that's also a zine, so to speak, you can get. It's very interesting. He released a set of hacked firmware for this phone at, I think it was ShmooCon a few years ago. I won't get into that, that's just phrasing. The quick and dirty about that is LLID is the local ID for the device, almost like an IP address. Code plug is the configuration on there, CPS is customer programming software, what you use. DMR, essentially digital radio. What this is almost just like when you're cable TV and digital. It takes a 25 megahertz band and it can force 4 different channels down it instead of 1. So that was the main thing about DMR. The hack firmware, what does it get us? DMR works by sending out messages with the LLID saying, okay, this is going towards this device. So then when your device gets it, it's like, is this my LLID? Okay, I'll play it. Oh, is this my LLID? I won't play it. Promiscuous mode will just let you play everything. So if you're at an environment and potentially wanting to listen in on, say, security guards or anything else in that environment, this would be a great, easy way to do it. Bonus, the walkie-talkie itself is about $100 give or take. There's a few other variations. Obviously, the other fun is you can kind of say whatever you want for these up. Don't spend $100. Grab your SDR. Everyone should have one of these at this point. I highly recommend rtl-sdr.com. They have a great website that collects information. They have their own device. It's actually a fantastic device. $25 will buy you that and some antennas. Nice kit. It's receive only. The idea is this way, if you know who's you want to listen to, you can probably listen to this. The question next, do you know where to listen? RadioReference.com. You're going to know what you're listening to, everything from your local law enforcement to Tropic Appeal to the Seminole Hard Rock Cafe. All that stuff's there is listed, so it's easy to find out. Speaking of SDRs, depending on what you're trying to do, I've done previous talks that covered everything from listening in to information from alarm systems, so you can see motion detectors getting set off within a building. You could potentially listen to clickers again where you replay them, open stuff like garages, so they don't have rolling codes, but also like those little ones that are in like parking areas. Another thing is power meters. You can actually listen into stuff coming out of power meters and know when someone is home. And I'm almost out of time, and almost out of batteries. So, and other things. A quick rant about this. That device there is the BSP 8266. It's used modularly in a lot of devices. My quick rant about Internet things is it's an afterthought. It always, always, always is an afterthought. People don't think too much about it, and they add stuff later. This is a QAM. It's used in cable television for sending out information. They added internet connectivity to this as an afterthought, and these things would crash the latest minute because that was all they did. Okay, quick example of how modular these things are. These are ESP devices that use these little modules in there. Let's see. This is why this is interesting to me. 100 million target IoTs chips have been sent out. I searched Reddit for more examples, and this company said they use these in their toys, and I'll let you guess what word is underneath that blue box there. Current exploits, again, how to deal with this stuff. The thing is, Lenny actually came out with a bunch of attacks on the ESP, and the great thing about that is the great thing about that is all these attacks would either cause these devices to freak out, or in one case, the one at the very bottom, cause a zero PMP installation, which would be and allow you to then listen in on the traffic these devices are doing. It's the same slide. So basically, zero PMP is there. So you could theoretically pause a device and you target an IoT device. You get into this state where then you could actually read all the traffic off of it, which could be this device and then trying to log into the credentials back to something else that you really want. So physical access, what does it get us? Similar to before, steal the device, try to dump the code. There's a talk at 350 about extracting code from these devices. I don't know what track is in track E. I'm going to be there, it could be interesting. Again, the great thing about these devices is they're modular and used everywhere. Moving on quickly, Zigbee, another IoT thing, works on 2.4 gigahertz, using a ton of actually industrial stuff. The main competitor is Z-Wave. It's easy to guess the channels because channels are listed 60 bits, so actually brute forcing those are not that big a deal. Killer B is the software used for doing this stuff. There's a bunch of different USB sticks you can actually do interaction. We've got slides up at the end. This was done by a group called River Loop Security, Josh Wright. The hardware used for that is the AVR and USB stick. And there's a ton of others that are used as well.
No, this was the software.
So that's, all right, well, I'll try to explain this very in depth. That's okay. Basically, Killer Bees is a great package. Once you get a USB dongle up and running with it, it is very easy to search out devices and what you can potentially do with that. There's ways to attack those devices, get them off of the ZigBee network they're on, and try other stuff. Another example is you can actually snip this traffic and look at it in Wireshark. Basically, you can use your wonderful imagination and imagine you're looking at Wireshark right now. And this is a packet that I captured at my house. And the reason this was nice is just like any MAC address, within ZigBee land, they assigned the OUI, which is the first 3 bits of the MAC address to companies. And this one packet I saw was an OUI assigned to a company called Itron. The reason that that is interesting to me, they said power cycle like that. Yeah. So it is a company called Itron. The reason that that's interesting is that Itron actually makes electric utilities, gas utility meters outside of houses. And back to, as I mentioned, I identified previously on actually getting information out of these devices to scan about energy use and how it goes. And the reason that that was potentially interesting is if you wanted to break in somewhere, and I talked specifically about breaking into houses, was you could actually track when the energy use increased and find open windows of time where the energy use decreased within a house, and get a pretty good idea that probably there's more home in that house or business. Yay! Okay, I'll speed through the rest of these. Okay, so ZigBee exploits, some just came out. This was one recently talked about that's interesting for the Q bridge, where people figured out how to send hacked firmware to a light that would then not respond to the Q bridge, would force them to remove the light and then re-add it to the Q bridge, but then to execute remote code execution, or it would then cause a remote shell out of the Q bridge and still was technically on that network. They showed this off a while ago, but they actually just patched it in February, so this would still be very useful. Checkpoint everything out there. Quick and dirty system over time. Z-Waves are a big competitor. You can use any device that does under 1 gigahertz radio using RFCAT. Again, all the stuff's at the end. Example of kind of hard to see, apologies, where it's scanning for networks and has the option to try to do network discovery or turn lights off and on. I love that those buttons are there. Those work sometimes, they don't work sometimes. But again, in the thought that you're trying to break in somewhere, if you can flip all the lights off, it can cause some confusion and maybe work to your advantage. Physical access, find a device and steal it. The Killer Bee stuff has a device to actually use the good fed, again, from Travis Goodspeed, the good neighbor previously, to search through dumps from this thing and find keys for ZigBee networks. That's a photo I wanted to use. We kind of find use for our interview. Red team. It's in the Ivy folder. RF isn't just Wi-Fi. RF isn't just useful if you can read data off of it. If you can figure out why it's sending data, sometimes that's good enough. Embedded in IoT is always funny, and the reason is partially because the second one, no one bothers updating cheap hardware. And a lot of the stuff that I covered was kind of commercial-related, consumer-related stuff. But my thing here is people bring things into their office and plug them in. I remember I had a job back when I used to smoke. I would come in every day, I'd sit in the smoking area, I'd light a cigarette, I'd get online and check my mail, and one day I thought, what's this network I could do? Just assuming that it was just something going directly on the internet? No, it was directly on the inside network with zero passwords or anything that anyone could access outside. I ended up working, since I was part of security, to hunt down this was. This was someone brought like just a home net gear in because they wanted to plug a printer in closer to their office, and there was only one network jack, so they used that like a switch. And didn't realize the Wi-Fi was still on. Anyone from outside the building could log into the internal network, hit everything. The other important thing again is what can physical access get us. Just because we're focusing on RF doesn't mean you can't go inside and steal it. This is another picture I wanted to use, couldn't find a use for, and cheat sheet page that has URLs to everything I talked about. The next page is just the things. Any question, but so far over, I don't have time.
So you just stay outside and have